All right, guys, welcome into the Gashouse gang on a Monday. Normally, it's the four of us. Normally, it's literally a gang on Monday. But Tom is on assignment today. Matt is actually calling the Cardinals spring training game, so he's technically on assignment too. So that leaves you with me and with Bernie Miklasz, and obviously the two of us have I think we have plenty of words, Bern.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I wore this Bob Gibson cap, his signature cap that's available, you can get it at Cooperstown or whatever. Yeah, I figure we could use Gibby's help, right?
Hey, listen, man, I'll take help from that guy on anything, anywhere,
right.
anytime, and anything. I should point out the Gashouse gang is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. You can see that right there. And if you go over just a little bit further, you can see Game Day Men's Health, our two great show sponsors. We have room for more, by the way, if you want to jump on. The audience is only growing. One pitch that I make to you guys is to run to YouTube if you're watching on there. And if you're not, go there, subscribe to the show, like it, do all that stuff. But mostly subscribe to this show and to the Bernie Miklasz show on YouTube as well.
Thank you.
That way you'll have everything covered for St. Louis sports, but especially Cardinals baseball now that we're into the season. All right, Bern, we're into it, man. I told you right before we started, I spent a lot of the last 2 days watching spring training games. A lot of it just kind of in the background while I'm doing my baseball homework for the preseason. I like to spend the spring kind of knowing every team to some degree and all of that. So I was doing those two things a lot this weekend. And there's nothing more fun than learning stuff. And in spring training, there's only so much we can learn, right? You have to learn through a filter. There are things that matter. There are things that don't. And the things that matter only matter really contextually, right? Like let's start with JJ Wetherholt, since he's the buzziest guy in Cardinals camp after hitting a home run yesterday. Opposite field, by the way. Opposite field, no doubter, because he stood and watched it for a second. He knew he got it. So he's been a standout in the first couple of games. And, of course, that's exciting because he's the team's first-round draft pick. And, people want to see him here. I mean, he's a guy that can be one of their next offensive stars. So we can go a couple of different routes with this. Obviously, it's 2 games into his minor league career. We're not going to lose our minds over it. But he's a super interesting guy, and he doesn't seem like a guy that's going to take long to get here.
Well, and he's got supreme confidence. Nothing rattles him. He feels like he belongs already. He's one of these guys that comes along, and I don't know how many there are. I don't think there's a whole big long list of them. That he steps into the batter's box every single time. Doesn't matter if it's spring training, and it won't matter when he's actually in a real major league game. He steps into the box with the belief that I can take this guy. I can take this guy.
Yeah.
And just like yesterday, he had a bad first swing to go down 0-1 in the 5th. And when reporters asked him, what did you looked a little frustrated or something. What did you do? He said, I just flushed it. Just wait for another fastball. Boom. See, Kev, I'm not saying I disagree with you. Okay. Because I don't want, if I, me, man, if I disagree with you, I tell you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want it to come across as like I'm like shooting down what you were saying. I'm not at all. But let me make this point. He is in a different category than usual spring training quote phenom, right?
Amen. Yep.
Through the years, we've all seen guys come to camp. Some of them we know a little bit about. Some of them we've heard about. Some are actual Cardinals prospects, and a guy will look really good for a week or a week and a half or something, and then he had his 15 minutes and nothing. Okay, he's going to kind of resort to his own level, right? And those guys are everywhere in spring training, but we got to differentiate between them and JJ Wetherholt. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, this isn't John Nagowski, okay?
Right.
This isn't Justin Williams, okay? Right. This guy, pardon the cliches. Well, first of all, he was the best pure hitter in the draft. He would have went number 1 overall, but some teams were scaredy cats about a hamstring issue he had. The Cardinals were blessedly lucky to get him in the 7th overall pick.
Yep.
All this guy has done everywhere is hit. And he hits the ball hard, man. I mean, he doesn't it's ironic. His first spring training hit was a bloop single, whatever. Not a bloop, but a little soft single. I mean, he had a hard hit rate in the minors last year. His first taste of pro ball 56%. And he is just loaded with confidence. Like, he's not a guy that as soon as he hits like a rut, he's going to just like, cave in and just like, oh my God, what do I do now? He's not one of those guys. He's a different kind of animal. And so I put him in an entirely different category when we talk about what's important and what are the usual things we see in spring training, and we got to be careful. We shouldn't overreact. My thing is this. This is a truly special hitter and a guy that I think is going to be a really terrific Cardinal for a long time. And to quote the late Jack Buck, go crazy, folks, go crazy. Well, the last thing I'm going to do, the Gashouse Gang or YouTube or scoopsnetwork.com, the last thing I'm going to do is if JJ Wetherholt does what a natural born hitter does and hit and hit and hit and hit, and people are getting excited, I'm not going to tell anyone, hey, let's calm down. Are you kidding me? The St. Louis Cardinals, who have very little personality, they have very elite talent, a very little elite talent. They need a personality. They need a star. They need someone that will actually get fans excited. Mason Wynn is one of those guys. No, go crazy. If the Cardinals need their fans to get excited about something. So what? Like, I'm going to come on here and be just like, listen, you all need to calm down. You know how it is in spring training. No, go nuts. Enjoy every swing this guy takes. You know why? Because he's for real, and he's going to be in the big league sooner than later.
All right. So last week you told a story that's a fun one about Tony La Russa watching Albert Pujols the year that he hit his way onto the team. So let me play the what if game, because I don't think this is crazy. I wouldn't bring this up if it was crazy. I wouldn't bring this up if it was another guy.
Gotcha.
What if Wetherholt never stops hitting in spring? What if he's doing? Obviously, it's only 2 games now, but let's say we get a month from now, and you're facing more and more major league starting pitchers, because the home run he hit, now that was a minor league pitcher, but it's a guy that's the Astros' number 10 prospect.
Right.
Who's got a chance to appear in the big leagues this year, right? It's not some random nobody out of nowhere. It's also not a proven major leaguer, right? You do that against Framber Valdez in 4 weeks, and I think we have a little bit better discussion. But what do you think happens if this doesn't stop? If you get to the end of spring and he's been one of your best hitters and he's getting at bats in major league games against real legitimate major league starters and major league relievers?
Well, here's what I think. And that by the way, that's not a unreasonable scenario.
No,
that might
that's
be
why I'm bringing it. That's why I'm bringing it up, because for a lot of guys I wouldn't, but for him I'd bring it up.
I think the Cardinals will still give him time in Memphis because, first of all, they have their usual puzzle the Cardinals have a way of coming up with like too many guys who do the same thing.
Right.
And even though Wetherholt's going to do this thing, hit better than just about any of them, right? It's still a really crowded infield with Arenado coming back, and there's more guys than they know what to do with. And I would think, to cram him in, you're going to want him to play all the time. So who doesn't play,
Right.
Now, some fans' answer would be, and again, I'm not pushing back on any excitement, would say, well, if he's better than those guys, he should start. Okay, in theory, yeah, but we also know how the Cardinals roll, right? I also think it's in their mind what happened 2 years ago, or 2023, where Jordan Walker tore it up. Everyone was going nuts. But Jordan Walker, and I tell you, Kevin, I know I'm stuttering today, by the way. I know that this makes me sound like Mr. Know-It-All. It's insufferable. I apologize. But on my KFNS show, like the final 2 weeks of spring training, I said, "Look, man, if they want to start Jordan Walker off in the majors, go for it. I mean, I don't care. It'll be interesting. But am I allowed to talk about everything he's been doing in the last 10 days to 2 weeks? Ground ball, ground ball, ground ball, ground ball, ground ball." I said, he doesn't look good at the plate right now. And this started and he never really pulled out of it. So I'm not sure. It makes me wonder whether he couldn't use some time in the minors. Now, Walker came up and had that 12 or 13 game hitting streak, and he did well. So what I was saying at that time, people were saying, well, what do you say now? And they were right to fire that back at me. But I still think that they know deep down in their hearts they rushed Jordan Walker, and they didn't know what to do with him as soon as something went bad. And I think that's got to be in their mind somewhere. I would see a JJ Wetherholt coming up later in the season, much the way Mason Wynn did in 2023. But I don't know. I could be underestimating it. I'm being a little cautious, even though my enthusiasm level is maximum about him.
They're also very different hitters.
Yeah.
Right. Like one guy is power centric and the other guy is definitely just more hitterish, right? Like more of your traditional balanced hitter who's not fixated on power. So like, it's not that one's necessarily better than the other, because I mean, Jordan Walker was what, a top 5 prospect in the whole sport when he, coming into 2023. Right. So he's, he's still got that ability. Like that's not changed, but they are different hitters with different backgrounds. Walker was a high school hitter who had to work his way up and didn't even reach AAA. Now, Wetherholt hasn't gotten to that point either, but he's a college player who's played 3 years at a pretty high level in the college ranks, facing guys where games mattered and outcomes mattered. In the minor leagues, nobody cares if you win. Nobody cares what your team's record is. In college, you got to win, man, because your coach is going to get fired if he doesn't win.
And like I was talking about one example, like Dylan Carlson, they drafted him out of high school. He came up, he didn't hit like his first 35 games in the majors at the end of the 20 season. But in the playoffs against San Diego, he was fantastic. And everyone got excited, and everyone should have been excited. In 2021, he had a good year overall. He was really good in the second half. So naturally, there was every reason in the world to be fired up about this guy.
For sure.
But there are some things that we now know about him that we didn't know then. Mm-hmm. Number one, he had a devil of a time maintaining his weight and his strength. And the other two is that as good of a guy as Dylan Carlson is, his confidence was always fragile. So he's getting physically dominated by pitchers because he's not strong enough and he's not quick enough. Like it was a strange thing would happen to him physically because they did everything to put weight on him and it just wouldn't hold. See, but Wetherholt compared to Carlson and to Walker, Wetherholt didn't come right out of high school.
Right.
He had 3 years at West Virginia and he led the nation at hitting 1 year.
Right.
He's also much more physically developed. And yes. I even think in terms of his maturity, he's developed up here too. Yep. He has an amazing instinct and feel for hitting. He is a natural in that regard. Like how long did it take for you and others, as much as we like Walker, we still love Walker.
Yeah.
But when he was having his problems, it's like, wait a minute, that batting stance is just all wrong. That thing's all crooked. Somebody's got to change that stance, right? There were some mechanical issues that really hurt Walker. As for Wetherholt, that's not going to happen. He knows his swing better than anybody. I was joking with Will Leach, and I said, and seeing Red today, I said, look, he doesn't need 3 hitting coaches around him. Okay, go over there with that guy. Go over there with this guy. No, this guy needs your help. It ain't this guy, right?
Right.
Anyway.
That's a good point. All right, it's the Gashouse Gang with Bernie Miklasz and Kevin Wheeler on a Monday. Normally, Matt and Tom would be with us, but they're both on assignment. So, and I think Matt's going to jump in again tomorrow. I think Tom is here tomorrow. So we'll kind of get back to normal, but it's probably going to be a lot of me and Bernie this week. So, hey, good things. Maybe we'll pick some fights later in the week. Today, we seem to agree so far, so we can keep things on the calm.
Oh, we'll find out. And let me just say this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think you and I know how to talk. It's never a problem getting us to say stuff.
No.
Or to just go yap, 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 yap. And I think at this point, I think I'm worse than you are in that regard.
Well, that's a good competition. Let's go that way.
Yeah,
all right. So we're going to expand on this topic of, so we started with JJ Wetherholt. We're going to expand on this topic with what actually matters in spring training. And we'll kind of get into that next up. But before we do that, Bernie, tell us a bit about Saliga.
Absolutely. Dan Saliga is the 4th generation owner operator of this proud St. Louis institution of a business. Saliga Heating and Cooling has been around since 1927. Listen, they're an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer, and we've been a Saliga family calling them for about 16 years. They've been great. Everything about them is great. We're members of the Priority Club, and I want you to check that out. It's a maintenance plan where they come out and check your equipment a couple times a year just to make sure everything's working safely and smoothly, no problems. You're ready for the summer. You're ready for the cold winter. Take a look at that at SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. And they do it, commercial work, of course, residential work, all makes and models, whatever problems you may have. You can trust Saliga. They're never going to hustle you, try to get you to buy something you don't need, try to talk you into something. In our experience, time after time, they've actually found cheaper solutions for us. So highest recommendation is Saliga Heating and Cooling. Just check them out at SaligaHeatingandCooling.com.
All right, so let's pick up the conversation on what actually matters in the spring. And I think we've touched on this a little bit, but I figure since we talked Wetherholt, and we're going to be talking about specific individuals over the course of the next couple of weeks, where there are things to keep an eye on, right? So what Sonny Gray's spring training ERA is means nothing. It means zero. That doesn't mean a single thing. What Ryan Helsley's spring training numbers are means zero. And the same for any other proven, established major league guy who we have a track record on. What does matter is how young guys eventually hold up against other major league players, like we talked about with Wetherholt, but also in specific cases, Bernie, you're looking for characteristics or things to keep an eye on, right? Is, for example, Riley O'Brien throws 100 miles an hour with a sinker and has a wipeout slider. Is he throwing enough strikes? Those are things to look at. Tekoa Roby, prospect. We texted about him yesterday, our little group text. This is a very talented guy. He was 96 to 98 over the weekend. And may profile as a bullpen piece. What does matter is outside of young players standing up against major leaguers is if you're looking at somebody who's working on a specific thing and what is that thing, or somebody that's on the fringe of making the roster. Are you seeing what you need? If a guy's working on velo, let's use Miles Miklasz because I picked on him a lot. I like what I'm hearing from him in the sense that he knows he's got to go out of the zone more when he's got 2 strikes. And he did it over the weekend. He did it. He actually, and he even joked how weird it felt to do it on purpose. That's something to watch, even if his ERA doesn't matter.
Well, there are veterans who have gotten into kind of a bad way with their approach or whatever that can fix it, and it can change. We've seen that happen before. I hope in his case it happens because that'll be better for the Cardinals. And then maybe, the Cardinals, we won't have to keep talking about his ERA and his salary and him blocking somebody else. But so I wish him well. I really do. But the one thing you've talked about a lot, and I'm right there with you, is the Cardinals need more swing and miss.
Yep.
And if they can't get it in the rotation right away, okay, they'll probably have some more swing and miss soon enough. But in the bullpen, I think especially this year where, Kittredge is not there, Romero is a guy that after the first month of the season had an 18% strikeout rate. The last 4 months of the season, his ERA was over 5. I love JoJo Romero, but I think when people see him, they remember the best part of him rather than some of the stuff that happened over a long period of time. So what I'm trying to say is that there's not enough swing and miss in their bullpen. Certainly Helsley has it. There's simply not enough. So that's why Roby's so important, because Roby has the stuff to make the team. I'm not saying he will make the team. Right. He has got the talent and the swing and miss element that they really need. And that's why it's encouraging to see him do what he's doing. I agree with you about Riley O'Brien. We know that he can blow it by people, but as is the case with Roby, O'Brien's a guy that can't stay healthy. And that's going to be the question with both of them. There's a guy like Andre Granillo, who, again, I don't think he'll be on the opening day roster, but will he be in the mix in 2025 in the bullpen? I think so. He's a guy, if you look at his early minor league career, his strikeout stuff was okay.
Yeah.
But that's really accelerated. I mean, his last couple years, he's striking out a ton of guys. He got beat up at AAA a little bit, but that's not unusual. But that's a guy with pure swing and miss stuff, right?
Right.
Swanson is a guy that was starting to develop that. And I don't care that he got beat up the other day against Houston.
No.
I want to keep my eyes on these swing and miss guys because the Cardinals will have room for some of them at some point during the season. You know, you will see them. They'll be back like maybe the Memphis Shuttle a lot this season, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I was somebody brought it up on Twitter the other day, and it wasn't an argument or anything. It's just an interesting discussion because the team had actually talked about maybe bringing in another arm for the bullpen. And if I were this team, I wouldn't. You've got 5 of the 8 spots that are settled barring injury, right? That we know you got Helsley, you got Liberatore, you got Romero, you got King, and you got Fernandez. 5 guys, and those are your guys really for the 7th inning on, right? I mean, like that's the plan. It can change, but that's the plan. So you only have 3 other spots. You have to see what Riley O'Brien is. You have to. If he's healthy, you got to see. You've got to give these other guys opportunities. Zach Thompson, you can't just keep Memphis forever. He's a swing and miss guy. He's a lefty throwing 96 out of the pen. Like you have to get a look at those guys. And I don't mean in spring training. I mean, you got to see them against major league hitters to know if you have something there, whether that's Kyle Leahy getting that shot as a full-time reliever, whether it's Granillo, who you mentioned. There's a bunch of guys in camp, and there's another one that we can talk about, Bern, and this will actually kind of lead into the next part of the conversation. But if you can look at a guy like Nick Anderson that they brought in, who in 2019 was arguably the best reliever in baseball, period, the end of the argument. Made the All-Star team, wasn't a closer, but pitched like a closer. If you look at him in spring training and he's healthy and his velo is good, like his velocity's mid-90s, he could be a hell of a surprise, even though he's not a kid. He could be a guy that surprisingly makes the team and gives you some of that swing and miss, because when he's healthy and his fastball is lively, he's got one of the best breaking balls in the sport. So, like, in his case, what would matter? Well, when you're watching him pitch, are you seeing 94, 95, 96? Because if you are, that means his arm feels good, and that means that breaking ball, that curveball is going to have that arm speed you need to be as nasty as it was a few years ago. So, like, these are the things that I'm going to be keeping my eye on, and I think you got enough, between those guys and guys like Tekoa Roby and Gordon Graceffo, you got to look at him too. And maybe he's a reliever. Maybe his velocity stays 95, 96 as a reliever, even though it dips down below that as a starter. I think these are guys you have to find out about.
See, and I thought, and I didn't say anything at the time, but you're so right about Nick Anderson. It was really smart to take a flyer on him. It's a minor league contract. I mean, what difference does it make? No harm, no foul. I mean, and with him, it's just physical. Is he still can he be physically capable of throwing mid-90s? Because then that sets up, his real nasty stuff. So it's just a matter of like where he is physically. But if he's there physically, maybe not 100% in terms of prime form, but if he's pretty close to that, yeah, he'll be in that mix. He'll maybe be in that mix at the beginning of the season. Yeah, but that's right. They do have a lot of relievers. I guess I'm kind of a nervous guy from the standpoint that, Kittredge did so much for them. I wonder if anyone can do exactly that, because then that would be a problem in that bridge to the 9th inning. And if if Romero's not striking guys out, that's another problem in that bridge to the 9th inning. They lost one. They were 66-1 last year when they had the lead through 8, and they only lost 4 games all year when they had the lead through 7. I mean, they were one. So I mean, if it wasn't for the bullpen, they're not an 83 win team. We may have been looking at a 73 win team, and I'm not exaggerating.
No, you're dead right. In fact, that was arguably the biggest difference between 23 and 24.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it whatsoever.
It is the Gashouse Gang, Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you on a Monday. All right, so kind of building this conversation forward, Bernie. We've listed a lot of guys. We've talked about this. Like JJ Wetherholt wouldn't be a surprise if he's a fast riser because he's an elite prospect, number 7 overall pick. Obviously we talked about him. Anybody that you would like to surprise this spring? Is there a person that you're like, man, I just want to see more of that guy? I like we just talked about Riley O'Brien. Nick Anderson could be that guy. To me, there are a bunch of them. One of them is one we haven't gotten to, and I don't know that there's really a lot of opportunity for him. But God, I want to see more of Thomas Saggese. I would love if he surprised and forced his hand into some playing time.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And as you were asking the question, I was going through all my tangled head wires up here, and I was thinking, all right, gosh, they have so many guys we already know about. It's just a matter of getting them opportunities. So JC's one of those guys, but there is, with Arenado back, there is a real question about how much opportunity he will get at the big leagues early in the season, right? We're not saying he'll never be up here in this season. That's not the point. We're talking about a full opportunity.
Right.
And I feel, I also feel the same way. And I think you and I are totally on the same page. Like you said, we got to find something to disagree about. You and I are totally on the same page when it comes to Victor Scott. Victor Scott was exciting. He wasn't ready for the major leagues. We found that out after we saw him. So he had to go back to the minors. He had to work on some stuff. And they didn't have a full-time outfield instructor. You know, they didn't have a full-time base running coach. Not that he needed much help there. It was a roving instructor, Ryan Ludwig, not someone that's at Memphis who's a batting coach, who said, well, wait a minute, you have more power. You got to unlock that. You got to go with a leg kick. Let's go. That changed everything. And Victor Scott started hitting the ball hard and hitting it far. And when he came up late last season, he looked like a different hitter, And again, I'm not surprised to see him getting off to a good start in spring training. Well, if you have a manager that talks about, oh, we're going to run, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to speed, we're getting after it. Okay, we all like that, as long as you have the personnel to do it.
Yeah.
Number two, they talk about the most overused word in St. Louis baseball vernacular in 2025, which is runway. I'm tired about hearing, I am tired of hearing the word runway. You know why? Because they can't do it, or they won't do it. When I hear the word runway, it's just like that bogus reset stuff. When I hear the way runway, let me ask you a question. Who is worthy of runway? Who's one or two guys that are truly worthy of the term runway? Oh, we've got to give this guy runway. Victor Scott may be at the top of the list, but the manager has convinced himself that this is the greatest center fielder defensively in the history of baseball, Mike Ciani. And it's like, Ali Marmol, I don't look for reasons to bang on him gratuitously. I really don't. Ali Marmol, there were like two answers during the winter warm-up where, to me, I'm like, okay, now I understand completely. So I don't even know why I'm going to talk about Victor Scott. It's like, but in the end, we got to do what's best for Victor. What's best for Victor is to put his butt in center field and play him. Okay. If you don't have the guts to do that with Nootbaar, look, if I can go to the betting window metaphorically, I want to put my money on Scott to pay off. But so stop with this runway stuff when you don't mean it. It sounds good, except people down there say it 5,000 times a day, so they're actually destroying the meaning of it. And we know that they don't really, they're not telling the truth, right? Because how much runway is open, and tell me which players will be on that long runway. It ain't Victor Scott.
No, it's probably Walker and maybe Gorman.
Yeah, but see, we already assumed that.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But other than that, where? Who? What? So
we got to have some guys cleared for takeoff, right?
Yeah, that's what all of our friends listening, and so Bernie's always raising heck about this or that, and because if you think about it, I don't raise heck about meaningless stuff. I mean, I also believe, silly me, is when a team throws words around, oh, this is a reset season. Oh, we're going to give a lot of young guys, we're going to give them a lot of runway. When they say that over and over again, I believe they should be held accountable for what they're telling us. We're not telling them this stuff. They're telling us this stuff. So
fair.
Do we not look and say, well, wait a minute, you're not doing what you've been saying you're going to do? I think that's fair game.
How about this name, Bernie? Garland brings up Matt Koperniak, who had a hell of a year at AAA last year. I don't think he's got a chance to make this team. He's a little bit redundant with a guy like Alec Burleson, but I'm curious about a guy that had an 800 OPS at AA in 2023, had an 882 last year with 20 home runs at Memphis. Left-handed bat, 26 years old. Not a lot of upside to where he is, but that's not a bad little player. I'll be curious to see how he does in the spring.
I'm rooting for him too, because they've held him for a long time, and they put him on the 40-man.
Yeah, they did.
And he did some really good things to which you just alluded to. So again, can I bring back this word I hate? Runway. Okay, well, and they talk him up all the time. Okay, well, where's his runway? Is it back to Memphis?
I mean,
they got runways in Memphis.
Lots of them.
So I don't see how Copernic fits. Not because I don't want him to fit, but I'm looking at a list I made earlier today. Not that anybody needs to be told this, but you look at their outfielders, and I'm going to consider Donovan an outfielder because I figure we'll see him out there some. So Donovan's a left-handed hitter. Burleson's a left-handed hitter. Siani's a left-handed hitter. Scott's a left-handed hitter. Nootbaar's a left-handed hitter. Kopernik's a left-handed hitter.
Yeah.
The redundancy, to use your word, which is spot on. I don't see where he fits because they're going to have a hard time finding at-bats or enough at-bats for someone like Burleson.
Yep.
Now that we assume Gorman's going to be spending a lot of time at DH, right?
Yep.
So I don't know how Matt fits.
No,
unless there's some injuries, right?
Yep. Exactly right. Exactly right. Gashouse Gang on a Monday. Bernie Miklasz, Kevin Wheeler with you here. We got one more topic to hit on. But before we do that, Bernie, let's hear about Saliga.
Yeah, Dan Saliga mentioned, fourth generation owner, operator's family business, and they've been operating same building in South City on Gravois since 1927. I love that. It's an American, it's an independent, American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning dealer, and they do all kinds of work, and you know that. And if you have an emergency or problem, you call them 314-481-7333. But real quick, think about becoming a member of the Priority Club, because the Priority Club will save you money. It has saved us money. Basically, they make sure your equipment is working as it should be. It's safe, it's sound, there are no problems. You can sleep at night. Don't worry about some unexpected thing happening. It's going to be really, really expensive. And that means when you have maintenance done on your heating and air system, it also means you extend the life of that equipment. So you're going to save money over the long term. And also, you're just not going to have to worry about surprises, because if there's anything going on in your system, Saliga with this maintenance program, they'll find it, they'll discover it, and they'll get to it when it's a cheap and inexpensive fix, rather than it becoming a big problem. It's Saliga Heating and Cooling. Go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
All right, so we got a few minutes left, Bernie, and I saved this for last on purpose because we're all sick of the constant soap opera of the Nolan Arenado rumors. This weekend it popped up from Mark Feinsand, who's great, by the way. I'm a big fan of Mark Feinsand, which is why I put something into it when I first saw his tweet that the two teams, the Astros and Cardinals, had gotten back together on talks. And then Katie Wu from The Athletic, along with Chandler Rome, who covers the Astros for The Athletic, got together and found out that it had already been broached again, and Nolan once again turned it down. So it's not really a thing anymore, even if it's still getting buzz on Twitter. It's not something. But I wanted to bring something up because in doing my homework for the season, and I mean, usually this is a whole month that I do this, but this past weekend I spent a lot of time on it. And there's a lot of people on Twitter like, well, if you want to go, why wouldn't you go to a team like the Astros? And I might submit to you, Bernie, and I wanted to throw this at you, that Houston's not necessarily any better than the Cardinals. That was an 88-win team last year that just lost Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman. Now, they did go get new players. They have Isaac Paredes, who's fine, but he's not as good as Bregman. And then you got Christian Walker, who's really good, but he ain't Kyle Tucker, right? So their offense is less than it was. Jose Altuve is changing positions because he's gotten so bad defensively at second base. He's in decline. He's 35 years old, by the way. And a guy with low bat speed who's not that big, it might have a hard time aging as you go. Beyond their top five guys, their lineup's not exciting. I think most baseball fans would have a hard time naming their center fielder and their right fielder. Jake Myers and Chas McCormick, by the way.
You helped us out.
Yeah, I know. Altuve's moving to left. Second base is maybe Brendan Rodgers, who just now signed a minor league deal. So late camp addition, or Mauricio Dubon. They've got some possibilities in the rotation, but Framber Valdez is in a walk year. Hunter Brown's really good. After that, it's just a bunch of guys that are okay. Ronel Blanco is okay, but he had a breakout year at 31. So it's not like he's a long-term guy. They got 3 or 4 pitchers on the injured list that might come back midseason to late. They have a really good back end of the bullpen. I guess my point is, from Nolan's perspective, looking at now and the future, I don't think he looks at Houston being any better than St. Louis. And he's always said, I don't want a lateral move. And you know what? I think he's right. I think he's right. If that's his evaluation, I think he's right.
Yeah, I absolutely buy that point. And again, I say that predicated on one thing happening. The Cardinals bullpen is going to have to be awfully good.
Right.
But I do assume that their offense will be better, and there are reasons to assume that. How much better? Well, that part I don't know. But I was looking at their depth chart as you were talking about. Like right now, you go to Roster Resource, which is on Fangraphs. Right now, their starting left fielder is listed as Ben Gamel.
Yeah.
What?
It's going to be Altuve. It's going to be Altuve, but
yeah, but that's your next line of defense, right?
Yeah.
The bench would have guys like John Singleton on it, like you mentioned, Rogers. The rotation that they list: Valdez, Brown, Blanco, Arrighetti, and Wisniewski. Heck, Wisniewski couldn't even crack the Cubs rotation.
That's right. Yes.
So no, you listen. You make a very good point. And
they were only 5 games better than the Cardinals last year. So,
right.
And they've gotten worse. Now the Cardinals may be worse, may not be, but the bigger picture is it's not about just this year.
Right.
If you're looking at these next 2 or 3 years of his contract, Houston might be better than the Cardinals in all of those years, but they might not be. And this is not like presenting an offer to Boston or to the Yankees or the Dodgers, who you know is going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, he could get, and you know what, the owner, Jim Crane, if they have a disappointing season this year, and he sunk a lot of money in that team and he was willing to do it again, he may just kind of pull a Bill DeWitt from the standpoint. It's like, you know what? We had a great run. We probably stayed with some players too long. We have to turn this thing over now. So Arenado could walk into another situation that he sort of walked into in St. Louis, and it was unforeseen at the time.
Right.
But things can change in a hurry. Don't we know that? They can change in a hurry.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point, because I've had a lot of people ask me, I don't know if you've had the same thing, like, why wouldn't you take a deal to Houston? Houston's not what they were 2 years ago.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's an 88-win team that just lost 2 superstars, 2 franchise cornerstones, and again, replace them with pretty good players, but they're pretty good players as opposed to franchise cornerstones. Their best pitcher is a free agent at the end of the year. Altuve's 35 and getting older and making a lot of money. Like, you know, the guy there that's the known is Alvarez, and he's probably one of the 5 best hitters in the game when he's healthy. But there's a lot of uncertainty there. And like, if you're Arenado, his point is he's only wanted to go to a place where it's better, where it's like measurably, provably better, which would be Boston, New York, LA, like that. You know, and this would be, to me, if I'm in his seat, this is a lateral move. It's a lateral move if I'm in his seat.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like literally a lateral move, but it's the Cardinals and Houston are in the same tier. Maybe Houston's slightly higher. Even if Houston is higher than the Cardinals in the tiers, that doesn't mean they're at the tier where you say, automatic contender, absolute threat to win it all. They're not in that tier. No. And that's, to your point, that's what Arenado was seeking, right?
Yeah. And again, it'll be interesting to see if injuries pop up. Maybe somebody like the Yankees comes calling. You know, maybe if a Max Muncy gets hurt, the Dodgers come calling. You never know. But at this point, it sure seems like the most likely thing, even though it's trending on Twitter every day, he's probably going to be here. And that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's not perfect, but you know, you might end up where you move him in July instead of, you know, before the season, and you deal with it that way.
You know, and it's going to trend on Twitter all season long. You know why? Yep. All it takes, it's like one match starts a big fire.
Yeah,
it's going to take
a few blue check marks going crazy.
It's going to take some like it's going to take the Yankees trying to use LeMahieu as their third baseman. He's burnt pie. He's done. Right. And then someone there, a broadcaster, one of the writers, someone there will have a note in a Sunday column. You know, the Yankees are reconsidering third base, and you know, expect them to make some inquiries of the Cardinals about Arenado. Okay, that's it. The bonfire. It's a bonfire.
Yep. There we go.
You know why? Because you have. I'm going to exaggerate on purpose. You got 20,000 aggregator sites that they don't do any reporting. All it takes is, in this scenario that I presented, hypothetical, it takes one guy in one market like New York to have a 2-sentence note in a Sunday baseball column. Well, they might call the Cardinals, right? Forget about it.
Yeah,
and then everyone's
the aggregators go nuts.
The aggregators go nuts, and then fans who just kind of don't get it, they assume this. Oh, look, they're really talking. Oh my goodness, here we go again. So we're going to have to put up with this crap all season long. No, we are.
Yeah, no, you're 100%.
So just prepare for it, my friend.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Gashouse gang. Great Monday. Every day, guys, every day between now and when the season ends, we have baseball. Every day. Now, there are going to be some off days, but that doesn't mean we don't have something to talk about. So we're in the middle of the heated moments here on the Gashouse gang. Thank you so much to Saliga Heating and Cooling and my friends at Game Day Men's Health. And you can find them at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Go check it out. If you don't feel right, do it. Don't wait. Don't sit back. Don't accept what you feel like. Feel better. That's what I'm doing. So, just not. I wouldn't tell you to do something I don't already do. That's what I'm. I guess that's probably the safest. Yeah, to say. Yeah, exactly. Your message with Saliga. Not going to send you to people that we don't go to on our own. Many thanks to everybody tuning in. Bernie, we'll be talking again, if not tomorrow, here in the next few days. But we'll talk to you later on today on DGS.
Gotcha, Wheels. Thank you, brother.
This is the Gashouse gang on all of your KMOX social media platforms.